I've got a 2012 Mustang GT 5.0 liter here with about 180,000 miles on it. I'm going to go through diagnosis of P0627 code and replacement of fuel pump. Um, the Unfortunately, I already did the repair, so I'll just be kind of showing you how to do it and talking about some of the lessons learned. So what first happened was, I'd start the car and I'd have some trouble starting it. It'd be knocking, and then eventually it would settle down and I could drive it. Got to a point where I'd be driving it on the road and you'd start having some more knocking, and you'd have loss of acceleration. I wouldn't be able to accelerate with the gas pedal by depressing it. It would have some hesitation and knocking. Eventually got to the point where just wouldn't start. You would try to start it, it would knock, and then I'd shut it off at that point. So I went to go check the codes, and there was no codes that were showing on the display on the cluster, but when I checked the actual PCM, there was a code for P0627, which is a fuel pump circuit open. So I'll go through the different steps if you get that code on this Mustang or any other car, kind of what you want to do. So the first thing you want to do is check the fuses. The fuse box is right here. And open it there, and there's basically right here is a fuel pump relay, and what you want to do is you can swap it with this one. This is the AC compressor relay. So if you swap these two and you still have the same conditions, your relay is probably still good. And then over here is a 20 amp fuel pump fuse. You just want to lift that one up and make sure that there's no damage there. It's a continuous fuse. So I saw both were good. So go on to the next step. So in the trunk here, if you lift up the cover, you've got your spare tire right back over here. This is your fuel pump control module. It's just attached here with a push tab. You just push that in and then pull out the whole assembly, which is this unit and this male part here. Obviously you're going to want to take out your spare tire if you have one, get some more room in here. And basically once you have that assembly off, you are going to want to take off the male part from the control module, and you just want to depress into here and then push it out. And then what you're going to have is this part here. This is your control module for the fuel pump, and it was about a $80 part, so I decided, instead of going and looking at the fuel pump, I wanted to see if the control module was damaged. I didn't think it was going to be the control module because I had a progression of everything getting worse. So if there was an issue with this control module, it probably would have just gone bad, and I would have had, I wouldn't have had a progression. So, but I replaced it anyway, and that was not the issue. So, after you look at this, you want to look at the continuity of the different wires. So you can take a multimeter and try to find out where your power and your return is. I can tell you on this one specifically, it's the bottom left and the bottom right. You just check for resistance in those two pins, and then I did that and I saw that there was no issue there, and I also did that with the fuel pump. So the next thing to do would be to check your fuel pump and or replace it. So the fuel pump is in your underneath the rear seat. So I already have the rear seat removed here, but to remove the rear seat, see there's a hole here, and then there's another hole on the other side. You're just going to want to take a screwdriver and push in and pop out the tab here, and then the tab on that side, and basically there's 2 more tabs on the top that you're just going to slide out. So once you pop it, you can take out the rear seat. You're going to see here that there's one seal there, another one here. To remove these, you just put your fingers in there and then just pop it out. This one over here is just a center unit. There's no fuel pump over there. On a GT 500 you'll have another fuel pump there, but on a regular GT you don't. So basically over here you want to pop this out. There's your fuel pump. So to replace the fuel pump here, the first thing you want to do is put a screwdriver in here and pop out this tab. Okay, when you pop that out, then you can pop this out. Just like that. This is your fuel line. There's a blue tab that is locking it in place. You're going to want to pull that out, push it in here, and remove the fuel line. So when you remove those 2 pieces, you can also remove this over here. This is just like a Christmas tree. You just pull it out. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to mention is this lock ring over here. This is what's holding the fuel pump in. So one way of removing this lock ring is to take a screwdriver and then put it up against one of these corners here, and then taking a hammer and whacking it. And that's the way I did it initially, but sometimes you miss and then you're damaging your fuel tank. So I don't recommend it. What I do recommend is actually getting the proper tool for this, and I'm going to show you that right now. So this right here is the tool I recommend buying. I think it's a somewhat of a generic tool because you can buy these for many different car models. But if you just search fuel pump lock ring removal tool on Amazon, I'm sure you'll find it. Basically, it's gonna lock up on these two areas right there, and then the other side on the other side, and then you just put in a 1/2-inch breaker bar in there, and you can twist it on and off. So the main thing though is this lock ring is bigger than the opening of this hole. So you could either take it to a shop, and the proper way of doing it is to drop the fuel tank, and then you could easily remove the ring. But if you want to save $1,000 and do it yourself, you might have to do a little bit of clipping. And that's what I did here. So if you take a pair of shears and you cut, about 1 inch or whatever hole in here, or the cut, and then you can take some pliers and you peel back some of the sheet metal, then you'll be able to fit this tool into the hole and also get the lock ring out. So another point that I want to mention is, I didn't have a way of getting the fuel tank drained, and I actually had over 3/4 of a tank of gas. So if you do this with that much gas, once you release that lock ring, you're going to have a lot of gas coming out of here, and it's going to be pouring into your back seat over here. It's going to be pouring down on top of the tank and down underneath the car. Make sure you've got some pans prepared to capture that. Otherwise, I recommend getting the car to probably at most 1/2 of a tank of gas. The less the better. So once you have this clipped and enough space and this lock ring removed with this tool, or with the hammer and screwdriver method, but again, I mean, if your car is a little bit rusted, this is a press fit, right? So there's a little locking tab that makes it difficult for it to come out. So once you get that out, I'll show you how the fuel pump looks. So this is the fuel pump here. And this is how it looks coming out of the car. You've got your little float right here, which tells you the level of the fuel. And down at the bottom, there's another inlet for the gas. So there's going to be a fuel line that connects to there. You just, take it off. It's pretty easy to take it off. It's just, you push the fuel line and take it off. So another thing that I'll note is that, once you get a new one, I recommend not just replacing the fuel pump itself, because you're going to have to take this apart. The best deal, and that's a pain. The best thing you can do is just buy this whole unit. And it's not too expensive. This was like $180 to $200. And basically you just take out the old one, put in the new one, and when you put in the new one, make sure to reconnect that fitting right there. You're going to put it down into the fuel tank. You're going to have to angle it a little bit. Another thing that I wanted to note is, this is like on some springs right here. So you're going to hit the bottom of the tank, and then you're going to want to push it down, and then use the lock ring to lock it into place. You want to lock it in with your hands first, and then you can use your tool to tighten it to the proper tightness. The other thing is you can't really put this in wrong, because there's a tab here at the top that only fits in one way. So once you put that back in, lock the ring back, and then you can, I put a little bit of paint here, but you can mash that back so it's level, so you'll be able to put this back on. And then so you just follow the steps in reverse to put everything back together, and that should be it. So let me reconnect this, and then I'll show you. Another thing during diagnosis is you want to make sure you don't even have to start the car, but you can, when you put the keys in the ignition and go into power, you should hear the pump turn on. So if your pump is not turning on, that's a problem. And so I'll show you how that sounds. So that was the sound when I turned the key. It just kind of made a whirling noise, and that was just to show that the pump was activating. So hopefully this helps with your fuel pump repair. It'll save you about $1,000 if you do it yourself versus going to the dealer. So it's not too bad of a job. Just you have to prepare for having gas kind of get everywhere. But another thing that I forgot to mention is you got to make sure to, when you're doing this part of the job, to disconnect the terminal from the battery, the negative terminal, and make sure not to have any sparks, obviously, from anything. And yeah, hopefully you're able to have some success. Thanks.